In examining attitudes about race, class, and gender in America and how they have changed, I'd first like to look at the term American and what it means. Kirsten Silva Gruss wrote about the term American becoming synonymous with the United States. When we say American, we mean citizens of the USA, not Canada or Latin America. Gruss also writes about Americans and the way we prize freedom, but also that it implies a consensual understanding of shared values and not just shared passports. So what does America mean? In her essay Sentiment, June Howard wrote about sentiment being historical as well as emotional, and that when structured and shared, it creates movements. But when thinking about structured and shared sentiments in terms of America, what images do you conjure up? Baseball and apple pie? A Coke and a smile? What does American look like? Blonde and blue-eyed? Does American ever look like this? What messages are we taught about America? From the very beginning of our educations about the history of this country, we are taught about George Washington chopping down a cherry tree. "I cannot tell a lie," he supposedly said. That was followed by stories of Honest Abe. Is what we teach kids in school any different than the messages backed up by the media? Was the Civil War really fought over slavery? The film Lincoln, in which Daniel Day-Lewis won raves and an Oscar, the film perpetuates the structured and shared sentiment that Lincoln was an honest and wise man whose main concern was the Emancipation Proclamation. Nowhere did we see Lincoln send in John Pope to crush the Sioux uprising, nor did we see Pope calling the Native Americans beasts. We also did not see General Philip Sheridan famously say that the only good Indian is a dead one. David Kazanjian wrote about the root of the word colonial, and that it originally meant conquered territories. He writes about how different our belief system is, and how the word colonist invokes images of plucky settlers fleeing persecution, and that we differed from France and England in that colonists didn't desire subjects. The lessons and messages were that we were better than the rest of the world. In his essay, he calls this a myth. Colonists didn't desire subjects, but we certainly revolutionized slavery. The way we took the word American as our own and changed the meaning of colonial, we also revolutionized slavery, becoming the first nation to make slavery a condition of race. In Walter Johnson's essay Slavery, we read the words of former slave William Wells Brown, who says that slavery has never been represented and never can be represented. George W. Bush called slavery a servant of freedom in his inaugural address, and later explained it as a struggle against injustice. Today, we call it human trafficking, but Brown was correct. How could it ever truly be represented? The closest we came was when Alex Haley's best-selling book became a miniseries on television. On television, not in schools, not in history books. Have we changed much in terms of color? Grace Hong wrote about property being more an ideology, considering the uneven actualization due to racial and gender dispossession. But is that limited to our early history? Or is it the immigration ban of Chinese or the forced migration of Mexicans and American citizens of Mexican descent in the early 20th century, the New Deal policies that favored whites, or later on when William Levitt built a community meant to be a dream for veterans returning from war, but only white veterans? We have a rich history of oppression. For many, as American as apple pie means white, and that is not limited to our history. What better way to illustrate sentiment that is structured and shared than to look at a Twitter feed after Mark Anthony sang the national anthem at a Major League Baseball All-Star game. This little Mexican snuck in the country like 4 hours ago. Now he's singing the anthem. Mark Anthony singing God Bless America on the MLB All-Star game. Am I the only person that finds that un-American? Mark Anthony was born in New York City. Had he been born in Puerto Rico, his native country would still be the USA. These tweets were from 2013. So what has changed other than technology? We have gone from signs like these to signs like these. Kazanjian wrote about the history of American exceptionalism and the way that our history is painted as one that makes us exemplary and a country that the world should emulate. Which brings another George W. Bush inaugural quote to mind. In the early 21st century, George Bush said, "All who live in tyranny and hopelessness can know the United States will not ignore your oppression or excuse your oppressors. When you stand for liberty, we will stand with you." Yet oppression isn't always in the form of policies. It can come from structured and shared sentiment that is passed off as a joke, but often is based in truths, at least truths regarding societal beliefs. Hillary Clinton is an attorney. She was First Lady, the Senator of New York, and Secretary of State. Yet she is still defined in terms of her romantic relationship as she considers a run for the presidency. She has often joked that no matter what the situation was, the news was always about her hair. In 1917, Emma Goldbaum called marriage no better than an insurance policy or a contract, saying women's premium is her husband. She pays for it with her name, her privacy, her self-respect, her very life. Almost 100 years later, Hillary Clinton is an example of how much we still consider a woman's premium her husband. So how far have we come? Are we a country of freedoms, fighting tyranny and oppression, or does America still mean white men who speak English? In the Super Bowl this year, 2014, that American institution Coca-Cola had the audacity to make a commercial celebrating the diversity that America has always been proud of. Bilingual Americans sang America the Beautiful in different languages. Twitter blew up again, calling it a disgrace, threatening to ban Coca-Cola, and mistakenly claiming it was the national anthem. Retired Lieutenant Colonel Allen West joined the uproar, saying that if we cannot be proud enough as a country to sing America the Beautiful in English in a commercial during the Super Bowl by a company as American as they come, doggone, we are on the road to perdition. So much for celebrating America the Beautiful as the melting pot. Another structured and shared sentiment, another myth. What happened to give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses? When looking over our history, we have come a long way, but we also still have a rich history of oppression. While our presidents speak about fighting tyranny and oppression in another land, we still have citizens here in the United States of America who are fighting for equality. Despite a constitutional separation of church and state, morals come up again in the LGBTQ community's fight for gay marriage. It was only this year that the Boy Scouts allowed openly gay scouts, though they still ban openly gay scout leaders. So despite progress for women and for African Americans, can we really say we are a country that values equality? Or are we still a country that only values equality for those who fit the image of what American means? Is the American dream for everyone? How has race, class, and gender changed over the years? While policies may have changed, it still feels as if we are fighting some of the same battles. There is a renewed fight to close our borders, a movement to make English the official language, outrage over pressing one for English. Trayvon Martin was a wake-up call that while African Americans won the battle for civil rights, it is still legal in some parts of the country to shoot a black kid wearing a hoodie. And all of the evidence needed to call it justifiable is that he was wearing a hoodie. Hillary Clinton will probably run for president, but we will hear more about her hair, her suits, and her husband's mistresses. The LGBTQ community will likely win their fight to marry in all 50 states, but they will still have to fight for it and hear comments about God creating Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. Structured and shared sentiment have created some great movements, but I still say, in terms of race, class, and gender in the United States, we still have a long way to go.